and that's where you started your career. So talk a little bit about how you became involved in technology, what interested you about it, and a little bit about what your role is today.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Haley. So yes, I've been in technology industry for more than 20 years now. And like you rightly said, my journey into technology wasn't a traditional one. I actually started in finance. I completed my MBA and I had all my plans geared up to have a career in finance and investments. I even started an internship back then with a big multinational finance company. But what I soon realized is that, while I was enjoying solving problems, I was enjoying the collaboration and the team partnership, it wasn't really my passion, the finance aspect of it. But glad that I realized it very early in my career. And around that time, an opportunity came along at Wipro. And this was my first assignment. And I was involved in assembling, troubleshooting, and working hands on with computers. And to my surprise, I enjoyed it. What I thoroughly liked about that work was, that I was working with systems, I was solving problems, and I was finding ways to make things better in the process. So, really, what started as an unexpected opportunity very early on actually drove that path or created that path for me in the technology space. It has been over 2 decades now, right? In terms of where I am today, it's been 2 decades. I have worked with many large, several global organizations over the course of time. Today, I serve, and I've been with Verizon for more than a decade, and I serve there as an associate director for Verizon's network systems organization. And today I lead teams which are responsible for building and delivering applications that support Verizon's critical network operations and service assurance functions. What really continues to motivate me is the ability to solve problems and create value for the organizations. We continue to have these. I just want to make sure, Haley, you're still here. I saw you disappearing there for a second.
I
Okay.
think we had a
All
little
right. So
glitch, but
today,
you're back.
okay. All right. Cool. So yes, I think what really continues to motivate me in this domain is the ability to solve problems, complex business problems through technology. And throughout my career, I have worked on initiatives around cloud, automation, modern software engineering practices, adopting those practices for leading big enterprise initiatives. Um, I'm also working on AI, data management, and all of these initiatives have been driven towards helping organizations modernize their platforms, right? So that the organizations can better engage with their stakeholders, they can better engage with their business partners. So that is what my current focus is in my current role, where I'm leading teams delivering this value and creating these value for the organizations. And really the pivot to your point happened um, 20 years back. And like I said, I'm glad that it worked out that way. And here I am right now working and passionately working towards the goals. Yeah.
It sounds like your work is right at the heart of what many large organizations are grappling with, and we certainly see that at ISG as well. Um, I want to talk a little bit about a decision that you made. I think maybe during the pandemic or right after the pandemic to go back and get a computer science degree. And you didn't just decide to go back and get a degree. You did this while you were working full time and raising a family. So tell us a little bit about that decision and how you felt confident to take on such an enormous challenge while you were a full time mom and a full time leader.
Right. Well, to be honest, I don't think it was confidence that really drove that decision for me. It was more about having a strong sense of purpose.
Hmm.
Because by the time I decided to pursue my master's in computer science with Georgia Tech, I had already spent many years in the technology industry. I had built a successful career, earned certifications, and I was leading technology teams. So from a career perspective, I didn't necessarily needed another degree to boost the career growth path. But the technology continues to evolve, and I think we all acknowledge at such an incredible pace. And it was very important for me to deepen my understanding around the foundations of the technology spectrum. And that is the challenge I wanted to, that I wanted to challenge myself in that process and continue growing in and as a technologist while I was pursuing my leadership goals. And a lot of people, like you rightfully said, ask me, hey, why would you want to go to school back again? You have a career and you're busy, you have a family life. And I think in my mind, I used to always retrospect and think like, why not? Right? Because to me, growth happens when you are out of your comfort zone. You don't always drive or learn to drive a parked car, right? If you have to grow, we should be willing to put ourselves in situations that challenge us. And this journey wasn't easy. Like you said, I started the program around pandemic back in 2020, and I was spending the next 2 years balancing a demanding career, my studies, my family life, and all the complexities that we all ran into as globally with the pandemic situation. So there were plenty of late nights, early mornings, missed weekends, and moments where I had my self doubts. But really, what got me through was not really confidence. It was, I want to say, it was my clarity of my why. I knew exactly why I had started it, and that purpose is really what Haley kept me moving forward when things started to become difficult. And I do want to give a lot of credit to my husband, to my daughters. They were an excellent support system throughout this journey. So, and I don't think I would have accomplished this without them. So every milestone was like a family achievement for us.
So important, right?
Yes. And while the degree, was the ultimate goal, there was one thing that I experienced it and I really learned through the whole process is that, it's not just about getting to the finish line. It's really about celebrating those small victories along the way. So in this case, with the course, it was, hey, it was a difficult project. I had a challenging course, or I had a difficult assignment. So those things, as you step through, navigate those challenges, I think that's what really gave me the confidence and the momentum, to keep going. And I would say that being from a technology space, knowing that this space evolves and changes so rapidly, that it is very important for the leaders, the technology professionals to somewhere have a lifelong learning and curiosity in them, right? And at the same time, it is also important as professionals that we continue to challenge ourselves. We embrace that uncertainty element because that's really what helps move the needle forward, right? From point A to point B for you as an individual. So that was one of the valuable experience that I learned. I think many a times some of these things are in our back of our mind. We know them, but when you actually navigate through that and you have a first-hand experience, it further reinforces the importance of these little things along the way.
I loved what you said about getting centered on your why. And I also loved the celebrating small milestones. This is really a theme of our Women in Digital conversations with our 2025 award winners is this constant reinvention. And you certainly reinvented yourself many times. So I have two questions about that. One is, um, in hindsight, as you reflect on that reinvention and those experiences and those challenges that you took on and overcame, is there a deliberate practice that you have with respect to getting centered on your why, celebrating the small milestones, making sure that you're incorporating a support system? Is there a deliberate practice that you have that you can share with our audience, or do you have an instinctive sense for when opportunities come along that can challenge you or lead to growth?
It's interesting you ask that, Haley, because I always feel it's always easy to connect the dots looking back.
Exactly.
When you are going through that process, you don't know how it's all shaping up. So I think reinvention for me has been less about, it was not that I have been intentionally pursuing change, that I have to change and I have to reinvent. But what I have been pursuing, and I strongly feel about that, is pursuing growth. It's more about pursuing growth than pursuing an intentional change. And when I
Mm,
look back at my career, the transitions may look intentional in the hindsight because it's always easy to connect the dot when you look back.
yeah.
But they certainly didn't feel that way while I was going through that process or every time I go through that process. And I certainly did not start with a master plan in my mind that, all right, I'll start with finance, get into technology, then software development leadership, and then I'll, go through all these different variations of technology and learn about them. So no, it was no master plan in my mind when I started off. But what has been intentional, Hilly, is my commitment for continuously learning and evolving, and my willingness to, I want to say, to step into some of those unfamiliar territories, because for me my career is more about expanding my capabilities, not necessarily like a linear growth chart, like which is vertical, but it is also about how I expand my capabilities. And when you focus on expanding your capabilities, you create opportunities where you will encounter new technology, you will encounter a new business challenge, or you will encounter an opportunity to make a bigger impact. And because you're focused on expanding your capabilities, or because I was focused on expanding my capabilities, those encounters came as opportunities where I could invest time to learn and grow into it. So I think that's why these transitions are they just happen naturally. It wasn't really intentional. And also the ecosystem that we thrive in, right? The technology space is also ever changing, ever reinventing. So if you are in an ecosystem that is consistently reinventing itself, and you adapt your pattern to that reinventing kind of an ecosystem, you tend to also, bring those qualities and adaptability in your conduct. And it is important, for us to be curious, open to learning, and be willing to step out of your comfort zone, being open about embracing something that is unfamiliar. Like when cloud came in, or when DevOps came in, or even today when we are navigating our strategy through AI, it's a learning process. You are every time getting yourself into an unfamiliar and unknown space. And because you carry the confidence and you carry the knowledge, right, you are able to navigate, but in the process you're also able to learn and expand your understanding of that ecosystem. And then if you have that mindset of solving complex problems, I think you can bring a lot of these qualities together in the process. So for me, it's really has been about becoming a better version, and the underlying themes have been about learning things, creating value for the organizations and the teams that I work for. It's very important that at the end of the day, I can talk about that. There's a problem that we have solved. There's a value that we created in the process that with the technology that was adopted or the solution that was implemented. So I would say that reinvention wasn't something that I was deliberately chasing. Uh, I was certainly pursuing growth, and I feel the reinvention simply happened to be a byproduct or an outcome of that process.
What you said earlier about going back and getting a computer science degree, about asking yourself the question, well, why not? I love that because I think so many women feel like to step outside of your comfort zone, to take on a new challenge, to take on a leadership project or a new opportunity for growth, that they have to be 100% ready, and people are reluctant to, I think, put themselves out there or take on these challenges without feeling that readiness. So I love that question, just to stop and ask yourself, well, why not? Why not me? Why not now? So thank you for that. So beyond what you're doing at Verizon, you also are teaching at a community college and you're involved with the IEEE leadership. And many people would find, back to what I said at the beginning, I'm feeling very inadequate reading this background, but many people would feel like their hands are full, which is one of those roles. So, talk a little bit about what motivates you, what drives you to invest your time in these activities outside of work, and what do you get back? What do you get back from these activities on a personal level?
Right, and I think you hit it really well in that question. See, teaching or volunteering, or I'm so I, as you rightly said, I teach at the community college, and I am also the chair for the IEEE Computer Society, and both the teaching and leading the computer society gives me an opportunity, I think, to give back, and at the same time, stay connected with the broader technology community. And after 2 decades of a career in technology and serving in different leadership roles, where I have had the opportunity to work on some of the large scale technology transformation team initiatives, lead teams, I have realized that there is a lot of value the experience bring for a larger audience. So when I'm teaching at a community college, I think one good thing that happens in the process is there's a gap that I'm able to bridge between academia and industry. Many students walk out of the college today learning great technical concepts. They don't get often exposed to the real world challenges the organization face. So, what I really enjoy about the experience in the classroom is helping students understand how the technology can work in solving the real problems, how you can connect or bridge the gap from what you read in a book to how you execute that same thing in a real life situation. So I think that is a very interesting position to be in and share that perspective with the new talent coming into the industry. And really, what inspires me to do that is when I'm in these classrooms, most of these students that I engage with are could be the first generation college students in in their families. Some of these are veterans trying to make a move into civilian careers. Others could be professionals looking for reinventing themselves to enter into the technology field. And and I am very amazed, and I'm very proud that these students work through these things with a lot of determination and resilience, because so I appreciate the work that they are putting in, and I feel that if I could be a small part in their bigger journey, and if I can contribute in a small ways in their bigger journey, it's a very rewarding experience when the student walks out gaining confidence. And when they land their first job, or when they drop me a note saying that, hey, I was able to figure it out, and I was able to clear my certifications. And I think that's a big achievement. It feels good that you played that small role in someone's bigger journey in their lives. And really, IEEE Computer Society, Haley complements the same mission, though in a different way, because this is the platform where you enable innovation, research, professional development. As part of my collaboration or partnership with IEEE, I have had the opportunity to publish multiple research. So now I'm once again connecting the work and the learnings that I'm drawing out of my everyday life into something that could be referred, learned, and processed, right, by students or by other professionals. Um, I have had the opportunity working with them to organize conferences, have multiple technical talks, and I think that creates. So that's really motivates me, right? That really inspires me, because you are now coming out of your little 9 to 5 shell. Not just you're coming out of that shell, but you're actually bringing a lot of experience that you have gained between 9 to 5 into something that is making a more meaningful impact, right? So you're able to also, in the process, create a stronger identity for you as a professional. So there is a lot of goodness that comes when you expand, and you bring some of these pieces little by little together, and that has really been, I want to say, my motivation or my driving factor to actually put time and effort into these things.
All right. Well, it's inspiring, and I'm going to stop feeling inadequate, and I'm going to just take some action with a growth mindset. So you've inspired me today, Antra. And as we like to do here, you're inspiring our audience as well. We have a question from our prior guest, Nita Sardana from Innova Solutions, and it's about careers in technology. So I'll just read you the question. Nita asks, in addition to your work in software development at Verizon, you've made time to mentor and teach through Built by Girls. As both a mentor and professor, what are the most important lessons you try to share with students who are interested in pursuing careers in tech, especially as new technologies like agentic AI are changing what that path looks like?
Yeah. Great question, a very timely question. I want to say that, I want to encourage students not to become overly focused on a specific tool or a technology, because
Mm,
all the tools have a certain shelf life. So invest instead of, pouring yourself. And I think we need to really, as students, we got to invest ourselves in understanding the fundamentals. It is important to learn how the systems work, how really the data is flowing, how the systems are talking to each other, what is the underlying nuances that really enables technology. Because once you understand those fundamentals, you will be in a much better position, and you will stay more relevant regardless of the technology or the tool that you have learned. Because I completely concur that with the rise of AI and agentic architecture, A lot of students who are still in the process of getting into the mainstream, they might feel worried about their future careers. But my perspective here is that, AI wouldn't eliminate the need for critical thinking,
Hmm.
for creative leadership, for having a sound engineering judgment, right? These are the things that we would still need. And AI is more of a powerful collaborator rather than a replacement for anything. So, and the students who would thrive are not the ones who knows the most of the programming languages or they know all the AI tools. They will be the students who are really will be able to thrive. And that would be my advice would be, hey, learn, know how to be able, be willing to learn, have that adaptability and ask good questions and leverage technology like AI, the tools to amplify your impact in your space.
Hmm.
So don't get too concerned or, don't pull yourself back thinking that, oh, I cannot contribute much now because, oh, there's already an AI. I cannot code because maybe Claude or other tools are already doing that. Great. Use that to your advantage and then bring your creativity, bring your engineering judgment in the forefront because that is still needed. And so definitely embrace change as students. Definitely invest in yourself, understand the fundamentals, um, embrace challenges. So yeah, because the world still needs technologists, the world will still need innovators and creative thinkers. I don't think that need of is going to go away anytime. So
I wish we had you in every classroom across America right now. So maybe we can create the AI version of Antra for that. Well, I hope our listeners will share this with the students in their lives. But before we let you go, um, our next guest is Catalina Chan. She's the executive director of technology at TriNet, and I'm hoping you have a question for Catalina.
yes, yes, absolutely. So I was looking through Catalina's journey, and I see that she has led some great work around revenue, operations, sales. So she comes from that space, and then so I think the question that I have from her is for her is that how has her definition of leadership evolved as she has moved across these different technology functions from revenue, operations, sales to now as a technologist, right? So, how her leadership has evolved as she moved through these different domains and also what skills from her sales and operations background perhaps ended up being her biggest advantage as she moved into the technology space. So I think I'll have these two questions for her.
Those are great questions. So I look forward to asking those of Catalina in just a week's time in episode 27. Antra, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I know our audience got a lot out of our conversation, as did I. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much again.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you for this opportunity. I loved it.